Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink was kind of requested. Somebody asked me to do Pelikans from the 4001 series, Brilliant Brown, Brilliant Red, and Violet. And the thing is, I didn't have Brilliant Brown or Brilliant Red, and I at the moment cannot get brown or red, and I didn't think I had Violet, but turns out I did. So I had it in cartridges, I think. Yeah, so I had these. So Pelikan, at least all the Pelikan cartridges that I've had, they have this little white disc at the bottom. And then, I don't know if this will show up on camera, but do you see that? So it actually has, like, in little raised writing on their Pelikan. And the discs aren't colored. You know, like sometimes you see some brands, like the color of the ink in the cartridge, the disc will be that color. No, but, so I think this is Violet. I had 2 cartridges left. I always just thought it was purple, because I just assumed it was purple. I don't know why. The thing is, I bought this either in Reykjavik in Iceland in first 2 weeks of January 2012, or else I bought it in Dublin the May before that. So I didn't keep the box because I put it in my yeah, when I'm traveling I carry this around with me to hold cartridges. So yeah, so I just took them out and I put them in here. And yeah, so the thing is, this might be pink. I don't know if they have a pink, but this is very pink. The thing is, this is a purple that might be a very dark pink or something. I don't know. Yeah, when I think of purple, when I think of violet, I think of something that's a little more blue. Purple, I think of something that's a little more red, which is why I guess I assumed it was purple. But yeah, so this is Pelikan 4001 purple, question mark? This is what was left after my tests. After I put the cartridges in these 2 pens. Yeah, so this is an Ohto Tasché. It's a Japanese brand, and when I bought it, they said it was a fine nib. But this writes more like a Western fine than a Japanese fine, so yeah. Linked. And this is a Kaweco Ice, and it has a double broad nib. Yeah, so that's a nice contrast, right? I think this is the only double broad I have, but yeah. So there's that. Now let's check out this comparisons. I didn't have that many comparisons for this, and again, my camera is changing the color. It's making this look much more straight purple, when really this is like a magenta-ish. It's quite pink. It's quite a pink purple. So yeah, here's 4001 purple question mark, and Private Reserve Arabian Rose. They are quite similar. Arabian Rose is maybe a bit lighter, but like the lighter bits through here, kind of the medium bits through here. And here's Géobin's L'Homme de Cassis, which is a little bit more pink, but quite similar, like through here and through there. As I said, I didn't have much that looked quite like this, so some of it's a bit of a stretch. Here's Diamine's Claret, or Clairefontaine, but yeah, this is pink. But the very light bits through here look like some of the very darkest bits through there, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so here's Diamine's Amazing Amethyst, which the camera is absolutely not showing at all, but like right through here and through there, the very lightest bits look like the darker bits through here. But yeah, so I don't have even samples that look much like that, but yeah, so there you go. Now here's the chromatography, and I almost just want to, because you can see my fingers through the paper, but here, yeah, let's use this as background. So the one on the right is the way it's supposed to be done, which is this, or sorry, the one on the left is the way it's supposed to be done. You can see the dot at the bottom is a lot lighter. The one on the left, in truth, it's still very light and still very transparent, but it is darker on the dried one, the one where I let it dry, which is not how you're supposed to do it. But as you can tell, there are big bare patches through here. Like, there is almost nothing. But what you might be able to tell is that here, where this dot got darker on the dried one, this is bare. This is absolutely clear. It's as if nothing was ever there. Here it's a little more foggy. And then up at the top, this is pink. This is just pink right up at the top. It's like a Barbie pink. So yeah. Implies not a lot of water resistance, not a lot of complexity to the color, but the stuff at the bottom is kind of blue, top is more pink, so that's probably how we get that purple-ish. Now I wanted to see what this ink could sort of stand up to, and so here's water. Water really got it moving. It is really pretty gone, but kind of like we saw in the chromatography, there is sort of that hazy blue at the bottom. 1/3 bleach actually didn't get it moving as much as water did. It just mostly turned it yellow. A light shade of yellow, but still. Ammonia pen flush got it moving, but honestly water did just fine. And hydrogen peroxide, I honestly don't know what to call this color. If you've ever like accidentally forgotten to throw away an orange and it starts to get kind of moldy, it's that color. That's the only thing that comes to mind. Oh, by the way, if you buy the stuff in bottles, it comes in a package like this, except the dot will be purple. And it'll come in a bottle kind of like this. Again, the dot will be purple. Yeah. Anyways, paper test. Top down in density, Clairefontaine, 90 grams per square meter. Yeah. So, what's funny is this ink goes on actually fairly dark. Like if you look in the vial at how dark and sort of solid and very purple this ink is, once it dries it gets lighter and it hints more towards pink. But anyways, that Japanese fine took 12 seconds to dry. That double broad took 26, and the smear went right off the page. You do get some very nice shading. That is something that this ink does quite nicely. And I'm going to bring this in, and I hope this will show up. See the dark outline around the wettest parts of the double broad? So that's really nice. I really like that personally. It's a kind of shading that I quite enjoy. And you can see the shading in the scrubby. There's a boldness to this color where it's got some like vibrancy, like some, I don't know, Vev, you know, it's nice. If you like this color, it's, you know, that it has that. It's got some like jovial brightness. It comes off the page without like being like an assault on the eyes. It is mildly wet, or at least mine were. I'd say it's about a 6 out of 10. There's no bleed, no feather, no spread, no echo, no sheen. All good in that regard. The water test actually remained more than I thought it would. But again, kind of like we saw in the chromatography, what remains is sort of mostly that sort of hazy blue. Honestly, I was expecting absolutely nothing to remain, so the fact that something remained kind of impressed me. Again, mostly what remained was that double broad. More ink was put down, some more remained. It is not the easiest thing to read. That would be difficult. Now, next up is Fabriano Echo Qua. It's an 85 gram per square meter paper. And again, we have some nice boldness. It's a very bright, sort of bold color. Yeah, the fine took 11 seconds. The double broad took 25, which really isn't too bad. You do see some nice shading on here. Again, we get sort of, and we get it in the fine nib too. I hope that'll show up. We get some shading in the writing. It's very well behaved. There's no bleed, no feather, no spread, no echo, no sheen. And I'm going to bring this quite in very close. See how it gets kind of shiny? Kind of sheeny? Like, there are just a very few little places, so like the Q in quite. I hope this shows up, because it is razor thin. It is just a sheeny, gold sheeny halo around that. And, what else? Oh, the T in the 5. Get a little bit of it there. It's probably not going to show up on camera, but still. So anywhere it might have dried on the nib a little bit. So once I finished, put the double broad down from writing this, and then as I was using the fine to write this, as I picked it up again, there was sheen there. So yeah. But anyways, water test, there actually is some remaining. It is much lighter. Most of it washed away. It didn't dye the page as much as I thought. The double broad did leave more behind. You can tell both which lines and with which dots were which. That would be a very difficult thing to try and recover. Next up is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter. Again, looks good, very well behaved. That fine took 12 seconds to dry. The double broad took 24. You can see just how big that smear is. Lovely shading. You can see it both in the writing and in the scrubby. It is a very pink sort of purple, but you know, it is a purple-ish. Yeah, there's, as I say here, if you like the color, go for it, because this is perfectly well behaved. It was very easy to clean out of the pens, shades nicely, mildly wet flow, vibrant color without being like offensively bright. Yeah, it has a nice halo effect around the wettest parts. Come on, camera. See that nice dark outline? I quite like that as a form of shading. Yeah, water test. Not much remaining. In fact, that fine is pretty gone. The double broad, both the lines and the dots and the writing, there's a little something left that would not be easy to recover, but I guess it's better than nothing. Next is Tomoe River, which is known for drawing out shading and sheen and dry times and echo, and it did with the dry times. The fine took 17 seconds. The double broad took more than 30. I generally do stop counting at 30. Sometimes if it looks like it's really close, maybe I'll keep counting, but here it didn't. This I'd say was over 35 seconds, but still, I mean, it's a double broad. It's a slightly wet flowing ink. This is Tomoe River. Smear went right off the page. Now, I really hope this will show up. I don't know if it will, but keep an eye on the bottom scrubby. See that? See how there are like little areas of sheen? Now you do get that in the writing as well, but it's in that like razor thin dark outline halo of the wettest part. So there's really not much of it in the fine, just because it's not putting down a sheer large enough volume of ink. But yeah, maybe we can get it in the... See little bits of gold shine? I don't know. But anyways, even if you don't see the sheen, you see that nice dark outline? Creates a nice contrast. Quite enjoyable to read. Great shading. Bold color. Yeah, I say there's some echo with the Kaweco, which is kind of true if you're very sensitive to it. I personally am very sensitive to it. I rarely write on both sides of a piece of paper. But, yeah, I mean the Kaweco, again, it's, you know, it's a double broad. This is a mildly wet ink. It does create a dark halo around the wettest parts. And this is extremely thin paper. So yeah, something to keep in mind. Now, this paper does love to let ink just slide away when you add more water, almost like it was never there. Here we don't quite get that. And that's totally what I was expecting. Because, I mean, we get a tiny bit of little something on the other paper. So I thought this stuff, it would just be gone. Not quite. Very nearly. I mean, most of that is gone. It is extremely difficult to read, but you can see something. The dots remain a bit, but, I mean, yeah, it's, could be worse. Now, for the next three papers, I only used the fine, except to write the name. Now, this is the world's worst 20-pound copier paper. This stuff is just complete trash. It is terrible. But as you might be able to tell, even before I bring it in, we do have a little bit of shading. If you look at the bottom of the X in Fox, how it's a bit darker than the rest, bottom of the L, dot of the I, this leg of the M, we do have a little bit of shading. Here I say we don't, but I don't know, when I was looking back over it, we still keep shading in all of the cheaper, more absorbent papers, which I was surprised by. Now, it does take 1.5 seconds to dry. We don't get that much shading in the scrubby. We do get a wooliness. It does take on a woolly texture. It does feather some, and it does tend to feather in the areas where there would be more noticeable shading on non-premium paper, or on the premium papers. And we do have spread. Like if we look at the line with here, that's the fine on the Tomoe River. And here it is on this terrible copy paper, so it does get broader. But yeah, color is still quite bright. In fact, I'd almost say it's brighter. But yeah, we do have some echo. We do have some spots of near bleed. Okay, that's the double broad, but Yeah, I mean, this is very absorbent paper and this is wet ink, so yeah, something to look out for. But again, this is the world's worst 20-pound copier paper. I can pretty much guarantee you have something better than this. Now, more absorbent papers tend to draw the ink in, make it harder to wash out, and that's kind of what happened here. I mean, we can see at the center something very clear, very there, pretty consistent. It's not very dark, but we can also see that that pink is sort of washing away. We can see little bits where it hasn't released yet. But yeah, that blue, like we saw at the bottom of the chromatography, is really remaining and the pink is washing away. So I thought that was interesting. Next up is Mead Notebook Paper. This stuff is very common for school children in the United States. This is the stuff that you'd find more like in a spiral notebook rather than like a composition notebook. Lately, this stuff has been feathering like crazy, and again, it kind of has. But before I bring it in, I think you can see, again, that we have some shading. Like the bottom of the L is darker than the top. This line in the Q, like some of it is darker. It's not a ton of shading, but there is some, which is nice, because a lot of times the more absorbent papers and less expensive papers tend to sort of suck out the vibrancy or remove all shading, and here it really doesn't. It's still a very bold, very bright color. Took 3 seconds to dry, but yeah, we do get feathering. But what's interesting is we don't get it everywhere. Like, you see bottom of the K in quick, bottom of the A in lazy, but other places it's just fine. Speaking of fine, like F, not so good, and an E, not so bad. It's kind of odd, but yeah, there's no bleed at all anywhere. There's like, oh, end of the scrubby, maybe a bit of echo coming through. But even that double broad didn't want to come out the other side. You can see it, but it didn't come out the other side. Now, this paper does tend to freak out when you add water. Here, it didn't as much as I thought it would. And again, like we saw in the chromatography, that blue at the very center of it remains, and that pink wants to wash away. Like here you see in the E, the pink wants to wash away. It just hasn't quite released yet, but it didn't feather, didn't explode. You absolutely had to recover that. I don't know, if you were motivated enough, you probably could. Now here's Moleskine, which I hate because it is very cheaply made, and yet they make you pay a lot of money for it. Again, we still have some shading, just a bit. Like here, the bottom part of the E, this part of the L, bottom of the T. But we do get a lot of feathering. And here it's more throughout. And it's got a woolliness, it's kind of unattractive. It took 6 seconds to dry. Color is still fairly bright, you know, we do have that. But we also have a lot of show through and a lot of bleed. We have many areas of bleed, which is not what I like to see. But again, I mean, this is a European fine, and it is a mildly wet ink, but still, and we get more spread than we see on the Mead paper. The line width got a bit broader, so yeah. And then let's look at this water test. This water test freaked out. I mean, like, the stuff at the center isn't nearly as static and steady, and the stuff releasing is sort of like spreading out, and it's not great. I would not ask anyone to try and recover that. That'd be a pretty hopeless task. But yeah, so there you go, by request, maybe. Pelikan's 4001 violet or pink or purple, I don't know. I don't speak Icelandic and I don't have the box anymore. Yeah, so it's a very pink sort of purple, but it does shade nicely and it does retain a little bit of shading even on the cheaper papers. Yeah, mildly wet, fairly well behaved, not a lot of water resistance, yeah. But yeah, so there you go. For your consideration from the Triple N Network. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.